The Early Weigh-In Podcast is back this Saturday, back at the Apex for UFC Vegas 104. We got 13 fights going down, headlined by yet another middleweight main event. We got Marvin Vettori, Roman Dolidze, 5-round rematch this time. Marvin Vettori taking the first one there. And in the co-main event at welterweight, Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos taking on Chidi Njokuani. Not the most high-level fight card, but I do think we'll probably get a couple finishes here. Usually ones like this that fly under the radar tend to be pretty good. Excited to get into them with you. As always, let's recap how we finished up last week. I did finish minus 1.35 units in the hole. Should have just been a complete null night for me. Absolutely hosed on Francis Marshall at plus 260, finishing like minus 1,600 live. Lost on Jalen Turner. Would have never bet him knowing he was going into potentially his last retirement fight. Fiziev, short notice, laid some chalk. Probably should have laid off there. And then, closer than I would have definitely liked. Unsuccessful with the grappling, but 2 units on Ankalaev and New. Give me 2 units back there. Minus 1.35 units, looking to kind of put it behind me. I do think I was going to cash on Kuniev plus 260, and it doesn't go the distance in blades. Hate to have lost that one on fight day. But, man, toss it over to you. What was a positive night for yourself? Then we'll get into this card.
Yeah, I only had one bet, Justin Gaethje plus 135. I didn't like the layoff for Fiziev and coming off of injury. And I like the fact that Justin Gaethje waited the full year to come back off of that tough knockout. So happy to cash on him as a dog for 2. I did take the plus 3.5. It was a stark difference between his money line at plus 260 and the 3.5 being at plus 100. And I felt something weird about that. I played it, and Marshall should have won hands down, but I did end up getting that one for a unit. And then right here it says that I put a parlay, but it screwed up. I had Turner wins by submission, ended up being the other guy. Only used a half unit on it, plus 2.5 units for me. Definitely happy with it. I think that makes 4 in a row for me. But we're still sitting under 5 units total with all 4 of those wins put together. So slow and steady, but I am happy to be in the green for sure. Okay, moving on to the first fight of the night. We talked about this one a little bit before this, and man, I'd love to start this card off with a dog, but I just don't know if I'm going to be able to get there. We got Yunesi Dubin taking on Carly Judas. Dubin coming off of the Contender Series, but possibly the female knockout of the year. I forget the name of the girl that she knocked out, but she absolutely flatlined her. Don't see that very often, especially at 125 pounds. She's taking on Carly Judas, who's had a couple of really tough losses, some split decision losses to some decent competition. And Judas, even though she's 0-2 in the UFC, she is the minus 500 favorite here. I think that this fight, the line at least, is a little wide considering we haven't seen Judas put together like a full performance that would get her a win. But this seems to be the type of fighter that she could get that done with as long as she could avoid getting knocked out. I think that Judas, we talk about this all the time, she's going to win by decision. This girl's undefeated. I think she kind of gets a little bit of a vet lesson here. Unfortunately, you got to pay minus 110 for the Judas decision, and I don't even want any part of that. So give me Judas, but I won't be playing this fight.
Yeah, man, me neither. Complete pass for me. I'd be quite shocked to see Dubin cash a massive underdog ticket yet again. She is a decent kickboxer, really undersized, and being so short in her stature. She does carry some power like she's shown last time, but you kind of touched on it, man. The level of competition, not even really comparable. Dubin's fought, very, very low-level competition on the regional scene, whereas I do think both Gabriela Fernandez and Ernesta Carrascate, I think both of those girls are much better than what anything Dubin showed me. My issue is, I do think Judy should be a moderate favorite, but 0-2 in the UFC, not really shown anything deserving of a minus 500. Like you said, hadn't really been able to put a game plan together to win a UFC fight yet so far. So I'd never laid this juice. She could potentially look it if she grapples, but I'll stick Carly Judas. Easy pass for me. Moving on up, we have Josiane Nunez taking on Priscilla Cachoeira. Man, the fight's super volatile. Both of these girls tend to finish at a higher rate than most other WMMA fighters. And on paper, it does feel like a closer to a 50-50 fight, where the line's sitting at right now. But I'm not eager to get involved, man. Just like the last fight, I think it's very, very low level here. Nunez, to me, is the better striker. She hits a lot harder, and Cachoeira has never shown me any type of striking defense. So I think she could get herself in trouble on the feet, and she's never really been someone who has a grappling path to victory, and that's kind of how I look to try to fade Nunes in the past, is with girls that can grapple her. So I don't see it here. If I was forced to bet a side, I guess money line side, I'd say it's dog or pass just because of the level of fight it is, but I can't bet on Cachoeira, man. And I think she's liable to get called on the feet. I know she's got a size advantage, but I think I don't know. I think she's a bit slower, lacks, again, tremendously in the defense. And I'm going to go Nunes. I think Nunes is going to crack her.
Yeah, bro. I was about to say, I think this is finally, we saw it in her debut. Nunes get the KO, and I've bet it a few times after that. We just see decision. This is finally the girl who's not going to stop, or not going to go to the grappling to try and beat her, is there to be hit, and is notoriously defending punches with her face, Like, I really think that this is a solid matchup for Nunes here, and I'll probably end up finding myself on her again. The KO line's like plus 380 right now. I think closer to fight time, people are going to start to think the same thing, and that'll come down as well. So I'll probably jump on that KO for a quarter unit and then 0.75 on her money line just to win that quarter unit back if she doesn't hit it. Not something I want to get too invested in, but I actually like Nunes here. It's just tough whenever we're talking about this level of girls and a minus 185 favorite. So moving up to, down to the flyweight division, Andre Lima taking on Daniel Barres. Lima, for only being 26 years old, I really like his fight style. It seems like he's cerebral when he's in there. He, has patience. He lets the fight come to him. I think Barres is going to give him the fight that he wants, put that pressure on him and try and break him. But I just don't think that he has, honestly, the skills to be able to wear him down over 15 minutes. And I do think that I see Lima just edging this out. I'm not sure that Lima is the greatest fighter in the world. His 10-0 record would maybe make you think that he's, awesome. But truthfully, I think he's just waiting to get checked. But I don't think it's going to be Barres here. So give me Lima, but I probably won't be playing it.
Yeah, man. See it kind of similar. I think it's one of the more solid fights on the card, despite probably going the full 15 minutes. I think Lima's a really good prospect as well. I think he's got a pretty solid, well-rounded game, a guy who's not as finish reliant as Barres. And like yourself, I think he does a good job of slowing the pace of the fight down and getting guys to fight at his pace. Barres, on the other hand, he's one of these guys who I kind of think he's like a miniature Hyder Emil or something, dude. Comes out with a ridiculous pace early, throwing big boxing combinations, works the body. Just can't keep up the pace like a Hyder Emil. After round one, Barres kind of does start to slow down. He's 10 years older than Lima is here. While I feel Barres has potential to win round one at an okay clip, I feel like the last half of two and all of round three goes to Andre Lima at a huge clip here. I think he could find himself on top with his grappling. Again, not crazy about the line, but I do think he'd probably sit him around a minus 200 favorite. And with the hot start Barres comes out with, maybe we could get on Lima live, but he's a side for me. I think kind of pretty much the same way you do about that one, man. Moving on up, Josiah Musasa taking on Carlos Vera. Did I skip one?
Yeah. Sam Hughes, Luciano.
Sam Hughes, Luciano, my fault. So you and I have kind of been texting about this one. This is kind of the price you always like to bet Sam Hughes at. She's always a dog, and this is one of the fights where, I think she can make it close and cover her price tag. She's a girl who's got ridiculous pace. She'll get in your face. The volume's always going to be there. Decent wrestling offensively as well. And with Luciano, I think she is an athletic girl. She hasn't necessarily shown me any cardio deficiency that I think Hughes can take advantage of. But you and I both tried to take advantage of Talita Alencar. Talita Alencar's got more of a jiu-jitsu credentialed background. But if I think she's live to get on top as small as she is and really not even have anywhere near the cardio of Sam Hughes, at plus 200, I feel like I got to take the stab here. And as this fight progresses, I just think Hughes is more and more live. So plus 200, probably find myself on the same page.
Luciano's honestly right on par with most of Sam Hughes' competition that she's faced in the UFC. So again, this is kind of like the UFC's way of testing Luciano. Sam Page is somebody who's going to bring the fight out in everybody that she faces. Her pressure is top notch. Outside of that, she's a little bit of a Darren Elkins, eats punches, pushes forward right through them, and then breaks people. But you kind of touched on Luciano not showing too many cardio issues. My biggest problem with her is her lack of killer instinct. It seemed like she had Alan Carr dead to rights in the third round of their fight, and she didn't capitalize on it. And I don't really love that. She's still young, so she's got a lot of improving to do. Sam Hughes, obviously the public dog right now. Like, I've seen a ton of people on Sam Page, and personally, I love betting her. I've done it before, and there's a lot of reasons why I want to bet her here, but I think it's going to be a layoff spot for me. I just feel like this is another one where it's going to be a close fight. We're going to see more than we ever have of Luciano, but she's still probably going to edge it out. And I think if the UFC had their say in it, they would prefer Luciano to get the nod here. So give me Luciano. I want to bet Sam Page, though. I just don't think I can get there. Moving up to the bantamweight division, Joseus Musasa taking on Carlos Vera. This is really good matchmaking by the UFC. Musasa's all of his finishes, I think 7 of his 8 or 6 of his 8 are by knockout. And Carlos Vera has never been knocked out. He's a South American fighter. We know everybody who comes from that region is really, really tough. If it weren't for his age, I would consider taking a shot on him because it is a crazy price tag at plus 455, facing a somewhat unproven guy in Musasa's here. So I don't know, man. I mean, there's a pretty good chance that Musasas just goes out here and wipes the floor with Vera, but I think that we will likely see more of Musasa's game than we ever have here. Extended. I think this fight will be extended, and I do think that Musasa is going to get the win. I can't get on board with betting a dog here as well. So give me Musasas to get the nod here, but the over one, and I don't know what it's set at. If it's set at 1.5, I'd like the over.
So I feel just a little bit, same side, a little bit different here, man. Vera, slick jiu-jitsu. Maybe Musasa does slip up. Vera finds his way on top, gets a submission, but I don't think that happens at a very high clip. I think the athleticism difference, the speed difference is criminal. Musasa's over 10 years younger, and I do think he's going to have the ability to keep this fight on the feet where I think it's one-way traffic. You briefly touched on it, man. 7 of this guy's 8 wins inside the distance, 6 of those under 1.5 rounds, and to have the youth, the athleticism, speed, and to be a minus 800, seeing it under 1.5 at plus 125, that's a little bit tempting to me, as I do think Musasa probably gets the finish, and probably under 7.5 minutes majority of that time. Moving on up, Su Young Yu taking on AJ Cunningham. I don't know if I get there on AJ Cunningham, but it kind of reminds me of the Nick Klein fight a couple weeks ago that we bet on. AJ Cunningham's a guy who's going to fight for my money, and that's something I can always guarantee. He's somebody who's durable, who's tough, and on top of all that, the Su Young Yu guy is an above-average Asian regional scene fighter, someone who come through the road to the UFC, someone who I don't think is, I can't say Cunningham's fought a list of killers, but Su Young Yu's competition doesn't blow me out of the water. I do think he's a grappler first who is not going to have the advantages on the feet as a lot of Cunningham's past opponents have. What worries me is Cunningham cutting to 135. Like to kind of see him on the scale. That's something I have some questions about, but he's plus 450, so made worse bets before. I kind of think he's a live underdog. So, I wouldn't be shocked if you out-grapples him because I do think he's a grappler, a really good grappler. And I will side with you, but if I'm going to chase a big underdog on the card, AJ Cunningham might get a quarter unit from me.
Yeah, man, I want to bet AJ Cunningham, but I just don't think that he has enough finishing upside. The difference between him and Nick Klein is Klein was going to finish if he won, and I'm not sure that AJ Cunningham can do it. And facing a grappler in you who's going to be the minute winner, I'm just thinking he's going to accumulate too much riding time for AJ to actually do anything. And then you touched on the 135. He's only done it once in his career. It was 10 years ago, an amateur, and he lost to a 2-2 fighter. I'm not sure that AJ Cunningham, just because of his toughness, is even it's just tough to get behind him, man. I think it's strictly because he's tough that people are wanting to bet him, and that's just not doing it for me, man. I like to have some finishing potential for these big dogs right here, and he's not giving it to me here. On that same token, though, like Asian grappler is never like your number one pick. You know, like they will get fraud checked eventually. It's like a European grappler. Like they're just not the same caliber as some of these other people. I'm just not sure AJ Cunningham's going to be able to show us anything different here. So give me you. You touched on maybe post weigh-in making another decision, and I think that's the right call. See where AJ is. Like I said, he hadn't made this weight in a decade, so we'll see where it goes. I've got you though. All right, moving up to the bantamweight division, the prelim headliner, Waldo Cortez Acosta taking on Ryan Spann. I got Waldo in the fantasy league, but it does seem like quite a few people are on Spann, and it's hard to argue it, man. I'm trying to think of the places where Waldo has the advantages, and I think he has a better chin, and I think that he has more proven cardio, right? I'm not sure it's better, but it's more proven. But on the flip side, I think Spann, has the athleticism advantage, the power advantage, and the wrestling advantage. That seems to be enough for me to bet a dog here. So I'll probably, it'll be kind of bittersweet whoever wins, but I'll probably find myself on Spann here. I do think that there's potential for him to wrap up a submission. So that's kind of where I'm looking at maybe playing it. Again, maybe it's like a 0.25 on the sub and then just 0.75 on the dog shot and Spann. But I do think that he should be the favorite, but it's still not the level that I want to be putting 2, 3, 4 units on it. So just give me like a 1 unit bet on Spann. I'm going to mix it up somehow.
Yeah, man, a few years back, coming off KO wins over Cutelaba, Reyes, you'd say the line's crazy and it'd be a no-brainer bet, but you just don't really know what Ryan Spann's ever going to show up on fight night, and losing 3 of his last 4, now coming in at heavyweight. I don't know if this is a fully committed Ryan Spann, that's just my honest opinion. You kind of said durability-wise favors Acosta for sure, while Spann is a pretty finish-reliant guy. So if he can't get him out of there, kind of tends to wilt. His cardio slows down. Spann's been knocked out multiple times in his career. So maybe Spann's success, he does find some success early, and maybe it is a finish early. But if he doesn't, I don't know. I feel like Acosta needs to get past the first 6 or 7 minutes, and I trust his gas tank, footwork, volume a whole lot more. Not crazy about laying almost 2-1 on him when a lot of the finishing upside, especially early, is on the underdog. But it's one of those where I could potentially get in on Acosta live, and to me that's probably the best play. But pre-fight, man, yeah, the underdog's got a ton of finishing upside, and that's kind of the way I'd lean.
Maybe another one that we wait until the weigh-ins to make an official decision, because Spann, like he touched on, he might just be lazy, dude. He might just be a huge light heavyweight and doesn't want to cut that weight anymore. And Waldo's somebody who's also 6'4" and pushing that heavyweight limit. So, depending on how Spann comes in, he might not want to give up all that weight. If he's under 240, I think that he's a good play. But if he's above 240, I'm not sure he gave himself enough time to put on good weight. So I would definitely wait till weigh-ins.
Vallejos and Choi at 145. I think the UFC likes Vallejos, man. He goes toe-to-toe with one of the better prospects of 2024 and Jean Silva, and he does this at 21 years old, taking the first round off of him. You talked about he's active on social media. He's a fun guy to watch, man. Dude comes forward, great pace, looks to be pretty durable. He's from Argentina, I believe. He kind of fights like a Francisco Prado, comes forward, big head, likes to take some damage, not afraid to throw down. And Choi, Choi to me looks, I think in the pocket, his hands are a little bit faster, and I definitely think he's 100% the more technical of the two at range. I really like his Muay Thai. The difference is when these guys land, man. I think Vallejos is at his age is going to be able to take it. I don't think Choi right now at this stage in his career is going to be able to take the power of Vallejos. So on paper, it could be a little bit wide, but I think if Vallejos crashes the pocket and lands one good time, we're going to see Choi go down. So I like Vallejos inside the distance.
Yeah, I also like Vallejos. I don't have too much to add. I think I think I'm laying off the fight entirely. I think Vallejos, this is a good matchup for his debut in the UFC that he had to work a couple times to get into it. Yeah, I agree. I think he probably catches him, but I think it's in the second or third round and not the first round like a lot of people are thinking. Moving on to the light heavyweight division, Dair Nurgaze versus Brindison Ribeiro. Dair, I like him, man. I honestly didn't do too much tape on him, but he looks like he has some knockout power. Ribeiro is not somebody I like to trust. He's been finished a multitude of ways, multiple times, and he's just not somebody I like to trust. This seems like it's a pretty forgiving matchup for Dair's debut. I think they're wanting to give him a win right here, but Ribeiro might be somebody who can test him a little bit and show us a little something different from a 10-0 fighter. So this is a good matchup for Dair. I think that his inside the distance is probably where I'd look to play it, but I'll probably just lay off considering we don't have much to go off of yet.
Yeah. UFC typically never doing Ribeiro any type of favors. I think he's been a dog in 5 straight UFC fights, including his Contender Series 1 that he won. He's weirdly athletic. I think he's deceptively long for his size, and I think that's what catches guys. But bad defense, bad durability, and probably going to cause him some issues here against Nurgaze. I think he hits way harder. I think he's a faster striker. I think he's a better striker. And, the guys who haven't finished Ribeiro, Gadzhi Azulov, Machado, kind of decision machines, man. I just think that when Nurgaze lands, I don't really trust the chin of Ribeiro to take it. So, yeah, I got Nurgaze. I got him in the fantasy league, and I think he finishes inside the distance. Moving on up, Blackshear, Cody Gibson. The line kind of sucks, but I do think that Blackshear should be a decent sized favorite. I don't really see where Cody's better. I think maybe he pulls out some vet tactics, but I do think he's going to have to land some takedowns and take over late and potentially steal the fight by just making it close. If that's not the case, I just feel like Damon's got his number on the feet, much younger, much faster, much better striker, much better grappler as well, in my opinion. Maybe not the better top wrestler, but in terms of grappling, jiu-jitsu, submission ability, that's Blackshear. So maybe hop on Cody live if you see things going south, but I think the athleticism and speed and things are going to be pretty evident. I like Damon Blackshear here.
Yeah, I would say that Blackshear has a slight advantage in the striking. Cody, great wrestler, but he's at such a strength disadvantage here that I think he's going to be ragdolled in those grappling exchanges, and that's just no bueno for him. So give me Damon Blackshear. Cody Gibson, yet another guy who is a dog but doesn't really have much finishing upside, so it's not something that I want to hop on. You mind pausing it for a sec, B?
Yep.
Moving on, we go to the lightweight division where we see Alexander Hernandez taking on Kurt Holloway. Pretty solid matchup for Hernandez, man. It's really tough to, had a roller coaster of a career, and it's kind of tough to find him good matchups in the 155 division. It's absolutely stacked. But this is one of them, man. Kurt Holloway, known for his toughness, and he's going to need it against Alexander Hernandez, man. I think Hernandez needs to wrestle. But at the same point, I think he's a better striker as well. This is just a tough fight all around for Kurt Holloway, and on top of it all, he's 38 years old. Yeah. That ain't good for 155, So give me Alexander Hernandez in one of the few winnable fights that he's gotten in a while. So, I don't know how he's going to do it, but I do think that at 32, he's finally kind of starting to come into his own, and I think he should get the nod here.
Yeah, typically when you see +2 or minus 200 on Hernandez, you kind of want to fade it, but I think it's a great fight for him as well.
Is this not just an older Austin Hubbard?
I think it's very similar to the Jim Miller fight, truth be told,
Yeah.
I just feel like if Holloway, I don't know, I feel like he is not the better striker. He has to find a way to pull some vet tactic guillotine or submission to win because he doesn't set high enough pace to wilt Alex. He doesn't have the power. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of how I see the fight going down. Alex is much younger, faster, explosive. And, yeah, I just kind of feel like he could wind up on top of Holloway, who has terrible takedown defense. He could wind up knocking Holloway out on the feet early. And I just feel like Alex is going to go out here and win round 1 at an 85% clip or something if he doesn't put him away. Yeah. And so you're going to get even better than plus 170 on Kurt Hollowball after round one if you do see tide starting to turn. So I'm on the Hernandez side. But again, I think we'll see a great number live if we see the same shit we see with Alex Hernandez as we've seen in the past. Co-main event time, where my bets finally start for the card. We got Zaleski dos Santos taking on Chidi Njokuani. You and I briefly spoke about this one at the end of last week's pod. I did end up betting Zaleski to win a unit here. I think Chidi's dangerous early, and if I lose the bet, I think it's by first round knockout, which typically does not happen for Zaleski. And also a very nice number, plus 650 or greater, to kind of hedge any of my bets. But I like Zaleski, man. Chidi has finally made this move down to 170. He's big for 170, but he's always been a guy who really loses a lot of steam after round one. I guess you can kind of argue that he's gone to decision his last 2 times out to negate that, but I don't put much stock into beating Jared Gooden and Reese McKee. I think those are fights Chidi should have finished. They're not really UFC level caliber guys. They're guys who have been cut by the UFC and brought back, truth be told. I think Zaleski might have to survive an early storm, but he just seems like the way more durable of the two in my eyes. He seems to have the way better cardio in my eyes. I think if anybody's going to have grappling upside, I do think it's Zaleski. It could be like the Randy Brown fight, and I just feel like Randy Brown does a way better job of keeping guys at range. I think he's got better offensive, defensive wrestling, jiu-jitsu. And I just feel like Zaleski, what he showed me in that fight, if he replicates it, it's plenty enough to beat Njokuani. So just get out of round one, and I feel like it starts to swing Zaleski big time. So Zaleski minus 180 to win a unit for me, man.
Yeah, so our first big disagreement of the night, I'm all over Chidi here, man. I think he's the longer, faster, better striker. Zaleski, he's getting up there in age. He's going on 39 this year. He's super hittable. And you touch on the Randy Brown fight being a comparison that you can make. I think you could also make it for Muslim Salikov. Like, if you just have a striker who understands distance control, you have the formula to beat Zaleski dos Santos, who needs to get into that pocket and needs to push this pressure. And I think if Chidi just stays on the outside, if this was a bigger octagon, I'd probably go even heavier on him. But I do think there's a high potential for him to win a couple of rounds and then start to break in that third and win a decision. And then I also think that there's a huge possibility that he's just way fucking better than Zaleski at striking early, and he catches him. Randy Brown's not really somebody who we know for as a knockout artist. Mm-hmm. And lately we haven't really seen that from Chidi. It's coming, dude. Chidi's one of the most dangerous strikers in the world, and I think that this is a solid matchup for him to show that. He's 36 years old, so that's relatively old. But man, compared to Zaleski, I just haven't seen the best version of Zaleski in the last few years. And wins over Scoggins isn't going to change my mind about that. I think that this is a solid matchup for Njokuani here, so I'm all over the Njokuani side. I just don't know how I'm going to play it. Or how many units I'm going to put on it, actually. I am going to play a little sprinkle on the KO and then the Njokuani side. But that is one of the dogs that I'm actually kind of excited to fight for or to look at because of his finishing upside. So give me Chidi here. We are going to agree on the main event, though, I believe. Marvin Vettori taking on Roman Dolidze. It's a little concerning because I feel like this is the general public's idea as well. I think that this is a great fight for Vettori. A rematch. He's younger. It's finally 5 rounds. He won the last 2 rounds against Roman Dolidze in their first fight. I think Vettori has all the volume in the world as long as he can avoid getting knocked out, which, that's not what Vettori does. Vettori doesn't get knocked out. He absorbed a ridiculous amount of strikes in his last fight, and he's still there, I think that this is somebody in Dolidze that at 36 years old, this is kind of do or die. I wouldn't be surprised if he just let it all out early and didn't give too much concern for his cardio. And maybe we could see a Vettori finish, which is not, normal, but I think that there is potential here, especially knowing that Dolidze does somewhat have some cardio issues. That being said, there's high potential that Dolidze steals rounds with just the bigger moments. But I do like the fact that Vettori takes shots pretty well. So give me Marvin Vettori. It looks like his line's coming down back to the minus 140s. And you could definitely find me on that Marvin Vettori side for maybe just to win a unit. 185 main event, probably a decision, probably close. So, I'm not really sure here. What do you think?
I did bet Marvin minus 140. I did just refresh DraftKings, and he's up to minus 162. So it's kind of been jumping all over the place.
Dang.
I kind of seen, but it honestly, I've seen it hit minus 160, and it kind of seems like money will come right back on DOLIDZE and bring it back down. So
today, Marvin Vettori was minus 148, and I almost bet him.
Yeah, I know. I saw the same number today. I think he should be minus 185 for a lot of the same reasons that you touched on. He did win the first fight, and with the way these guys fight, their styles, their durability, I don't see this one going too different. You said he's younger, 5 years younger. He's got the more fighting experience. I actually think while DOLIDZE is dangerous with the submissions, I think Marvin's probably the better offensive wrestler of the two, would push takedowns here. The cage control, I think he's the better striker of the two, was having real good boxing success in rounds 2 and 3. And the volume's not even comparable, man. He put up 100 significant over, I think it was 106 I wrote down in their 3-round fight the first time. It's line like over minus 200 to go all 5 rounds here. And so I looked at the 5 rounds Vettori's been in, because he's been in quite a few. 153 significant strikes in the beatdown he took against Cannonier, 190 against Costa, 164 against Hermanson. With 25 minutes to work against DOLIDZE, I'm expecting 150 significant strikes to be put up here, and I don't think that's volume DOLIDZE can compete with at all. If DOLIDZE tries to grapple, I think he gasses himself out. So, yeah, I think the championship rounds, maybe even 3, 4, and 5, go to Vettori all day here. So I was very happy with minus 140. I wish I would have got in closer to pick him, but yeah, still happy with minus 140.
Plus 1,100 for the Marvin Vettori KO. Ooh. I don't know, dude. I might find it, especially considering we're both saying that DOLIDZE slows down in those later rounds. I don't know, man.
I like it. Both on the Marvin Vettori side. That's all 13 fights going down. We're back at the Apex for UFC Vegas 104. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Make sure to like and subscribe. Comment below, and we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.